Now, the Reserve Bank of Australia bumped up interest rates another 0.25% this week. As you know, it's the sixth rise in 6 months, putting Australia's official cash rate now at a 9-year high of 2.6%. Governor Philip Lowe says the rate hikes will not tip us into recession. But this is an RBA governor who's been wrong before. For more, I'm joined by contributing economics editor of The Australian, Judith Sloan. Thanks for joining us, Judith. Look, this is a pretty tricky area for any central bank governor, getting the slowing of the economy right through your interest rate impositions without tipping the country into recession. And you've written extensively about how this Reserve Bank governor lacks experience outside the Reserve Bank. How much pressure is on his shoulders?
I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure, as a matter of fact. I mean, none of us are immune from criticism. Not that he possibly cares what I say, but it's now commonly called the narrow path. So this is the narrow path where the Reserve Bank jacks up the cash rate, and that then affects interest rates more generally across the economy, taming inflation, while causing the economy to slow but not move into recession. So it is a pretty narrow path, and I agree with that. And what we have to understand here is that the Reserve Bank of Australia does not act alone. It, in many ways, is a follower to the Federal Reserve, the US central bank, and so we need to watch what they're doing. There is one funny thing that's happened in Australia, is that notwithstanding our very good export performance, the Australian dollar has fallen and is low. Now that pushes up inflationary pressures and also creates an additional consideration for our Reserve Bank.
Yeah, now there's been a lot of criticism from various quarters of Philip Lowe and the advice, if you like, let's put it as advice that he gave to the country more than a year ago that a lot of mortgage owners, investors in properties would have taken heed of. Here is the Reserve Bank Governor in July last year.
Our central scenario continues to be that the condition for a rise in the cash rate will not be met until 2024.
Yeah, well, extraordinarily, of course, rates started rising barely 6 months after that, and they've kept going up. So here's the Governor just 3 weeks ago.
It's been obviously a difficult thing for the community to accept that interest rates have gone up much more quickly. But I also ask you to reflect on the fact that the economy is so much better than what people thought was going to be the case.
Yeah, it's a hell of a problem if people have borrowed big on the back of that earlier advice, Judith, but it just highlights how difficult it is to pick these issues, even when you're focused on them all day, every day.
Well, yes, no. I mean, so the Reserve Bank has got basically three tools in its kit bag. It's got moving the cash rate. It's got what we call quantitative easing or tightening, so that's either buying or selling bonds. And the final one is what we call forward guidance. And so the example of, interest rates will not change until at least 2024 was an example of forward guidance. He did not have to say that. He could have been much more vague. He could have said, as he has said more recently, depending on the strength of the economy, we'll have to see where cash rates head, right? But it was, I think, extremely misguided. And he has tended to walk back, which a lot of left players, left on the left, people will say, oh, well, I never really said that, or I didn't really mean that, or you misinterpreted that. In fact, he said it quite a few times. And so I do feel concerned that there are people who have gone out and borrowed on the expectation that interest rates wouldn't move till 2024. Now, bear in mind, we're only 2022. It's a long way off. And so I think this was a really major error on his part.
Yeah, and one that we'll be talking about for a long while to come, I think. Thanks so much for joining us, Judith. I appreciate it.